You are listening to Revealing Real Estate Podcast, where we dive into getting over your fear of taking risk in real estate and making money while you sleep. I'm Nick Oppedisano, your host and real estate guru with over 20 years of experience. It's time to get real. Hey guys, it's Nick Oppedisano and welcome back to Revealing Real Estate. Today I have Armando Sardellitti to the show. Armando is passionate about helping his clients navigate complexity to achieve their goals, as he heads a property management and the owner of RPM Wealth Builders. He is focused on helping the GTA real estate investors grow their wealth by offering a turnkey solution to manage their real estate assets and maximize their returns. He is also devoted to helping the GTA residents finding great places to call home and working to educate them on how to pave a path towards home ownership for themselves. Armando, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
No, I'd love to have you. Listen, I think what you do right now is a huge component of real estate. I talk a lot about investing into real estate and the rewards that you get when you put your money and get your money to work for you. Yeah. In something that's really tangible. And it's something that I believed in and really got me into the business of selling real estate itself. Armando, for those that don't know, like I mentioned in the introduction, he helps people manage their real estate portfolios. So Armando, can you just provide an overview of your experience in property management? How did you get started in this field?
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. So I would say my journey towards property management started a long time ago, kind of when I bought my first home, right? So over 20 years ago, investing in my own property and working as a salesperson, right? I was a corporate seller for companies like IBM for a long time. Yep. I learned the value of real estate investment and what can come out of that at an early age by investing in my own property. And then as I continued to work and build wealth, I was looking for places to invest it. The market was one, and then ultimately decided all of it wasn't going to go into just the market. So investment real estate became another path. And I looked at it as a good way to diversify. So from my perspective, I started off with my own properties. I started with a condo. Later, we added a detached home to that as well. And I was managing those on my own. And that's kind of where I cut my teeth on it. And again, just saw the potential of it, but also the need to have professionals that can help you do it, because it quickly does become a full-time job.
Yeah, we were talking off air for a bit, and I think it's a huge component for people because I think that's what really stops people from getting into investing into real estate is the fear factor of all the what if scenarios that are going to take place into investing into real estate itself. Dealing with the tenants, dealing with the payments, dealing with the issues of the homes. There's a lot of moving components to that. Dealing with the LTB, I'm sure you guys deal with that. 100%. Dealing with vacancy and so forth. What do you believe are the essential qualities or skills required to be successful in property management?
I think probably the biggest skill required is communication. Right, because it's a people business, right? And so ultimately there are a lot of moving parts. You're dealing with residents, right, that need a place to live. You're dealing with investors who are giving you, ownership of or care of one of their biggest assets. You're dealing with vendors who have to come in and help fix things when they break. Ultimately, your ability to communicate very effectively is key. And also, I would say another big one is empathy. Right, so being empathetic to where people are coming from to help resolve conflict, because ultimately, the resident, often called the tenant, I prefer resident, is working hard, wants to come home and relax, doesn't want to come home to a leaky faucet. You have to understand that environment is a challenging one to have to pay rent every month and deal with their family issues, etc. And the investor too is in a very tough spot as well. They're doing the same things, trying to get through life, also have money invested in a property, and they need to make the mortgage payments. And so ultimately everybody's got, their stresses. And when things happen and we need to come to resolution, empathizing with both sides is a really, really important part of being that property manager or that mediator, I like to call it.
If a landlord's hiring you for your services, I think you manage everything from A to Z in regards to dealing with the entire aspect of the property itself. So
We do.
realistically, I guess you just give them kind of reports on it. What happens if somebody's not paying the rent? How does that get resolved?
Well, that's a big one, and ultimately it gets resolved again with communication up front, trying to understand what's leading to this, the lack of payment, because that's an important responsibility of the resident, right? And then ultimately, if we can't get to the bottom of what's behind this, how do we help you get over it? The reality of it is a business, and if you're not paying for a service, the service can't stay on, right? So there's processes that we follow, and one of the reasons why you hire a professional property management company is that we stick to business, right? So ultimately, we're going to go through the notice period, we're going to file the correct forms with the landlord-tenant board, do that correctly so that it's not thrown out when it gets to court. And the thing, or in front of the board, and the issue, the challenge with Ontario LTB is that there's a huge backlog that
it's a huge backlog, which is a big problem. It's a big concern. I think sometimes I'm hearing you're getting 7 months to 8 months window before you get actually in front of adjudicator.
Yeah, that can be. And so the last thing we want is to get in front of the adjudicator and have an issue with the paperwork that was filed or the process that was followed. So one of the reasons why you put someone like us in place is to make sure that that process is followed as efficiently as possible. The reality is you're still going to have to go through that process, and hopefully never, knocking on wood.
Yeah.
We try to minimize that risk, and one of the things we do in terms of our full service is the whole lease up and the tenant screening, right? The resident screening. That's a really, really important part. So you want to try and avoid the scenario that you just talked about by doing a good job up front. And we spend a lot of time on that part so that we reduce any eventuality of going to the LTB to low single digits in terms of percentage.
If somebody's listening to the show right now, what's some advice that you can give somebody that would be able to kind of put them in a situation that'll prevent, issues to arise in the future?
Yeah, I would say be very thorough, right? So the steps that you need to take to do a good job of screening are easy enough to find, right? But it's a matter of taking the time to do them right and not jumping any of the steps, right? Income verification is a big piece of the puzzle for sure, right? And so there's a lot of you can be thorough about that when you're calling, for example, their place of employment. Are you using the number they gave you, or are you looking up your own number? You always need to have your radar up for any kind of fraud. And so ultimately, it's taking the time to go through all of the checks. Googling the people online, looking at their social media.
And I think a lot of the issues that you see or that we see out there in our industry is the fact that, people are not hiring professionals to do the right job for them, right? I do believe you need to hire, a realtor, a savvy realtor who has experience to really do a very thorough job in screening out property management service, having the right lawyer, having a good team around you. And having the right professional that specializes in doing what they do for a living is very crucial. I the horror stories that I hear are people wanting to go out there and do this on their own.
Yeah.
They don't do the proper thorough checks on them. Everything looks good because there's this thing we call professional tenants out there where they have really good employment. They have really, proof of income shows really well. Credit scores are great. But at the end of the end of it all, these are the ones that really understand the system. They understand the backlog with the LTB and take advantage of landlords. A part of this is educating people to make them understand that there are resources out there to help them through this process where it doesn't have to be so difficult.
That's right.
And I truly believe in the services that you provide. I'm a landlord. And once you have a certain amount of doors, it's a full-time job, and people need to prepare for that.
It can be.
Right.
And Nick, I would say that you're hitting on one of the misconceptions that people have out there, which is if I've got just one door, and a lot of times that's where you start.
That's where you start, right? Whether it be a condo or a townhouse,
Certainly where I started as well. So if I just have that one door, is there a professional option out there for me that's going to help me through all these processes? And the answer is yes, but most people don't know that. They think unless I've got multiple doors or a small building, it would make no sense for me to reach out to a professional property manager manager, no one's going to return my call. The reality is Real Property Management, the franchise that we are a part of, we specialize in single unit residential real estate as it relates to property management. And we do the full gamut, right from the leasing and tenant screening through all the tenant communications, all the proactive and reactive maintenance, all the bookkeeping. We've got portals for both the resident as well as the investor to keep up to date, to submit maintenance requests.
Amazing.
So it is a full service. And I will also say it's a very affordable service, even for that single door landlord. And the beauty of it is when you make that pivot and understand the value of that professional option, what it's also going to do for you is it's going to unlock scale. It's going to allow you to look at real estate investment as just another investment in any other asset, where you've got somebody taking care of that asset for you while you're focused on your day-to-day job and doing what you do best, right? And so then it allows you to scale, which you know better than anybody, Nick. Real estate is driven by the use of borrowed money.
Leveraging,
right?
correct.
Leverage. And if you cap yourself because you can only physically or personally manage 1 to 2 properties before your stress levels get too high, you're really not taking full advantage of the true power of real estate as an investment.
I can understand what it takes to manage people's portfolios and dealing with things on a big scale. I'm sure you're surrounded by a very big team. How do you prioritize tasks, like manage your time effectively in fast-paced property management environment?
Yeah, I think ultimately it is a very fluid environment. And so one of the things I do is make sure that my calendar is, I use my calendar very effectively to keep the priorities in front of me. We also use software tools, a variety of software tools, but one of them is a kind of a task management tool. And that allows me again to, see what's got to be done, but I'm always juggling it, re-swizzling it every morning because other things will come up. And if they are urgent, you do need to prioritize them. You can't be first in, first out. It's got to be what's on fire. So it's just a matter, I would say, of using the technology and the tools and owning your calendar. You can't just kind of go with it.
Yeah.
You've got to really be on top of what you're doing.
Yeah. And the fees associated to it, I don't want to get too in depth with it, but for the listeners listening to the show right now, I think you incorporate it within the cost of doing business. And what I mean by that is, to hire your services, I think you can associate, adding a little bit more of a rental increase that'll cover the cost of those fees that you're going to have somebody, you hold your hand through the entire process.
Yeah.
Would you find that that's a fair statement?
I would. I mean, ultimately, I feel like when folks look at the cost of property management, and like any good investor, you're always trying to limit your costs, right? Mm-hmm. But saving money on that professional management is a bit of a false economy, because when you really start to look at the value of your own time, the stress level that you're dealing with, as well as the compliance issues that can come bite you. There's a lot of rules. I don't know if you like when you read.
I'm involved with them every day. Believe me. Yeah,
I'm sure. The Residential Tenancies Act is a 100+ page document, right? That sets out the rules. It's easy to make a misstep if you're not a professional, and that misstep is going to set you way back. If you've got a professional that's on top of it every day, you might be able to lower your vacancy between residents from 60 days to 30 days. That extra month's rent already takes care of the property management fee. So I will say high level, right? And I'm happy to meet with anybody who'd like to understand the fees in more detail. But high level, less than 1 month's rent will give you a year of freedom. That's the reality of the way this is priced out. And the other thing I think people need to keep in mind is, and I think you touched on this, is that when you are investing in a property manager, it is an expense of your business. So you will be able to write it off against the rent that you're receiving. When you look at the after tax, out of pocket, it's a no-brainer. For the freedom it gives.
I'm definitely going to have you sit down with me and my wife, and we're going to go over a few things after the show is done. But the biggest concerns I have and the biggest issues I got, and I want to get your opinion on this, is the fact that if there is a situation that arises between landlord and tenant, and this thing unfortunately has to go in front of adjudicator, and there's such a backlog in regards to getting in front of in front of a judge to help decide what the outcome will be. I feel personally the system is broken, and it's concerning to me. And what I'm finding is that there's less and less investors right now, even with interest rates being so high, where the market is currently going, that want to get into residential investment.
Yep.
It's either they're looking to diversify and to get into more commercial, or even look at moving their money out of the country. Airbnb scenarios are becoming very popular,
Yep.
Especially in hot destination islands like the Caribbean, where you're just doing short-term rentals. You're not dealing with any of those issues, and a lot of these guys are going to sell their investments here because of the backlog with the landlord and tenant board. Would you mind expressing your opinion on that, and how you feel how maybe something like that can get resolved, or changes that maybe need to be made in that industry, so that we can see things change for the better?
Yeah. I think we do definitely have to do better. I think waiting 8 to 9 months to get in front of the board is kind of unacceptable. But I will say that is something that I believe is being heard. I have heard recently that they are staffing up more. I've heard that
for some time though, right? And I just haven't seen the numbers really there.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately it doesn't, the government doesn't move as fast as we'd like it to move. But I would say the trend is going in the right direction because they are listening. But ultimately, Nick, I would say this is a game where it's a long-term game. And if you look at the data, you go online and you look at the value of GTA real estate over the past 20 years, it is a very strong performing asset class. And I think a very worthwhile option for diversification of a portfolio. That's kind of A. B, I would say the biggest focus needs to be avoiding that outcome and making that outcome a low single digit outcome. This one, what we're talking about, going to the LTB and the 8 months, etc. You do need to be a prudent investor. And if you want to get into this game, which I think can be a lucrative game, but you do need to have your rainy day fund in place. Do not get into this if you can't do 8 to 9 months of no rent and still be okay, right? Mm-hmm. But if you have then your rainy day fund in place and you've got a strong plan and a strong process where you're leveraging experts, whether it be us or somebody else, to guide you through, if you can reduce that 8 to 9 month bogey down to low single digit occurrences, you should still be fine in terms of your return.
Yeah, that's some really good insight when it comes to that. How do you ensure compliance with local housing laws, regulations, and the fair housing practices as well?
Yeah, that's just a matter of staying on top of all those rules. One of the things that's great as being part of this franchise of Real Property Management is that we've got a franchise group, multiple other franchises across Ontario that I meet with regularly, and we share best practices all the time. And so I stay connected with people that know, and so that keeps me in the know. Another resource I really like is the Ontario Landlords Facebook group. That's also a great resource of folks that are listening, haven't used it in the past. I think you can learn a lot there from real people. I tend to start my days looking at that, and I kind of take the first couple of things I read and I quiz myself, right? What would you do if this happens today? And just to make sure that I keep the edge sharp and I'm able to answer it. There's amazing moderators on that platform that really help give insights so that you stay on the right side of the law. Yeah,
that's pretty true. And I'm definitely going to take you up on looking at that. I never heard of it before.
It's very good.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I'd be really interested in doing. How about some tips for property owners looking to maximize their value of their home or their investment through effective management? What's some advice or strategies that you guys would use in that?
Yeah, I think that if you've made that pivot where you kind of understand and realize, using a professional makes sense. From a tip perspective, I would just say, again, make sure you're getting into it with the right rainy day fund. When you're looking for that, that's always key. And I think people forget about it. I think that's important for you to sleep easy. But then I also think when you're trying to select a professional, make sure that you're doing your research there, meet with them, make sure they're people that you want to work with and trust. It is a big thing that you're putting in their care. So you want to make sure that you make the right decision there. And
there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to property management. I think there's a couple of ones that come across my head. Is it expensive? A lot of people don't want to. Do they really do the work that's needed within the industry to do that? What are some of the misconceptions that you'll find that people have when it comes to hiring a property manager?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest misconceptions, and we touched on it already, is really just the fact that a professional option actually exists, right, for the small guy. I think that that's one of the biggest things that people aren't even aware of, so they don't shop around for it. And I think that really hurts a lot of people because I've seen it do a couple of things. One is it prevents people who are interested in getting in from taking that first step because of that fear. It also causes, I'm sure you're seeing a lot these days, that with the transfer of wealth, people become unwitting landlords, right? They inherit a property and that immediately they feel that stress on their shoulders. And instead of thinking, well, this is a great opportunity, let's just get it professionally managed and I can focus on my day-to-day, they instead start thinking of selling because they just don't want to deal with that stress, right? And so I'd say definitely one of the biggest misconceptions is that, you can't get help if you're a small guy or a girl. I think that, dispelling that is probably one of the biggest things I'd like to do today.
If somebody had a property and washing machine breaks down, dishwasher breaks down, do you guys go in there, you look at the situation, and then if it needs a new dishwasher, let's say, do you go and look for the new dishwasher, get it installed for the homeowner? Like it is entirely just turnkey from that perspective? It is,
yeah. And so a couple of things. So a lot of our customers are out of town landlords, right? Folks that are working elsewhere. Yeah. And so they don't have the ability to go shop for that dishwasher, right? So they hire us because we do all of that. And ultimately, our tagline is we're going to treat your home like it's our own. So like I said, I cut my teeth on managing my own properties. I came up with a process that works for me, and I learned a lot as well as I was doing that. I take that exact same philosophy to how I manage my clients' properties. And it's interesting. One of the things you won't find from RPM Wealth Builders is multiple tiers of service. We don't have a bronze, silver, gold package. We have one package, which is the package I would want if I have a property, and that's the package I'm going to give. So, if you're not looking for full service, then, it's not something that we may not be the right ones for you, right? But ultimately, we come to the table as we're going to manage it as if it's our own. And when it comes to breakdowns of appliances, we'll manage it from start to finish. But we're not looking to just replace. We're looking to fix if we can. And if we can't, then replace becomes an option.
Replace, nice. So I guess the tenants, they would all reach out to you. They're really not even in contact with the landlord no more.
That's 100% right.
Yeah.
So all the communication comes through us, which is one of the biggest things we provide our customers, our investor customers, is peace of mind. Your phone's not ringing on Friday afternoon because the HVAC is broken and there's no heat. And yeah, you wanted to go golfing on that vacation, but now you have to solve this problem. You're never going to get that call. And those calls can come in 7/24. One of the things that people, another misconception that people might have when they get into the landlord game on their own, do-it-yourselfers, is that it's a 7/24 business. And they don't think that that's the case, but it truly is, right?
It truly is, because you can get calls that the roof is leaking.
Yeah.
How do you manage that call? How do you manage that aspect on it, right? These people need to be protected too as well. They're living 100%. In the home, and that needs to get repaired immediately, right?
It does.
Furnace in minus 15 outside, furnace breaks down.
That's
managing that call is a safety issue. It needs to get done. Carbon monoxide detectors.
Yeah.
How often are you going to inspect these properties?
Yeah. So back to the idea of I manage it like it's my own. I like visiting twice a year. So at least twice a year, I got eyeballs inside the house. I want to make sure everything's going the way it should. Things are being properly taken care of. And if there's any small things that need to be fixed, they get fixed when they're still small, not when they become bigger, right? That little leak under the sink that looks like nothing today, over time, that's going to rot everything underneath that sink, and your repair bill goes through the roof. So we're in twice a year to make sure that everything is under control. And if this is one of our options, if the investor wants us to go more often, of course they can.
How about damages like holes in the wall or crayon paint or markings all over the wall itself?
Yeah.
How would you manage something like that? Even if somebody right now is managing that themselves and they walked in, they inspected the property, and you know what, you can see that it's really kind of
in rough shape.
Yeah. Well, what's the best approach to something like that when you're dealing with a tenant?
I mean, ultimately, the tenant needs to take care of the resident needs to take care of the property like it's their own and like it was given to them. So, obviously, when it comes to doing a showing, we're showing it in its best form. We make sure it's very clean. We often recommend repainting because that really gives it a nice look for a new resident. And when we hand it over, we do a move-in inspection so that we document how it was given to you. And then we expect that's the way you're going to give it back. If it didn't come with crayon on the wall, which is very unlikely, then we expect you're going to remove that. You're going to have to fix that, right?
Right.
And that's our expectation. And you can't control what people do, but you can certainly itemize the difference between how it was given back to you and the way you gave it. And whatever it costs to bring it back to where it belongs, ultimately will become the residents'.
Yeah, and I think that's a very proactive approach. And I think it's something that most people should be doing is, you have that right as a landlord to go and inspect your properties. You can go once every 3 months. I think you just got to give ample notice.
Yeah. 24
I know
hours.
that there's situations where tenants have decided to take it upon themselves to go and change the lock of the front door. Yeah. But you as a landlord, you're entitled to make sure that you get a copy of that key. And you should always have a copy of that key. You have the right to enter into your property. Bear in mind that you provide the right notices that are set up for the landlord and tenant board, and you do a lot of those things. Mm-hmm. Technology is moving really fast today as well. Can you discuss the role of technology in modern property management and any tools or software you find that would be particularly useful for somebody?
Yeah. Technology is the core of our business. It's the only way that you can do it efficiently and be able, again, to offer an affordable service to so many potential investors. So we use technologies for so many pieces, Nick. We've got CRM systems that manage all of our incoming leads and our sales activity. We've got systems that manage our processes, right? Because property management is a very process-heavy job, and there's a lot of little details that can get missed, especially when you're juggling hundreds of doors. And this kind of software makes sure that you get stepped through every piece, and as well your team is on the same page and you see what's happening. We also use technology for things like automated rent collection, reporting to the credit bureau, right? If rent payments are made, which is positive, or not made, which would be negative. So we've got multiple different pieces of technology. All of our scheduling tools for doing work orders is all online. All of our inspections are with an online tool where we're taking pictures. And again, I mentioned the portal that our investors have access to. They can see the pictures. So they can see
the actual day-to-day of what's happening within 100%. Their property. And
so they could be off in Australia and just checking in, and they see the rent that's coming in. They see anything that's going out in terms of expenses for repairs. But they can also see every time I go in every 6 months, they see what I saw, they see my report, they see what needs to be addressed from the investor side as well as the resident side. So lots of pieces of technology. If there was one that I would throw out there that I don't think we can live without, it would be our process management software. And that's we use a package called Lead Simple, which is just a very powerful tool that spells out what needs to get done and keeps everybody kind of on the right track and not missing any details.
RPM Wealth Management, do they strictly focus in on residential, or is there a commercial component or a commercial industrial component to it?
Yeah, right now the wealth builders are focused 100% on residential. Yeah, so it's basically any residential property. Could be condos, could be townhomes, single houses, is what we focus on. And one of the things that sets us apart outside of the fact that we do this full service property management is that our team, our leadership team, also has the ability to handle the other aspects that a real estate investor needs in order to grow their wealth. So we're called wealth builders for a reason,
right?
Because it's not just about the management, which is so important, but it's also about being able to get the funding, right? So one of my partners, Vince Gaetano, is a mortgage broker with Owl Mortgage, and so he's able to find financing for mortgages as well as financing for construction loans. He also has a group that does repurposing of homes. So it can take, a single family home and turn it into a triplex as an example. So our team is able to kind of guide you through all the pieces that you would need to continue to grow your wealth in real estate in the GTA, but it's all residential.
It's all residential. Would you consider expanding?
We're always open to expansion.
I have a lot of clients that are looking for, that have, some industrial buildings, and they just, they don't want to deal with the management aspect on it. But I think that's a whole different sector or industry on its own, where, you're dealing with a lot of, the landscapers, the snow removal, the salting of the buildings, roof management.
It is a different animal.
It is a different animal for sure. I think probably an easier animal than residential, if you ask me.
Really? I should look into that then.
Oh, God, yeah. What would you say to somebody considered using a property manager?
Once again, I think the main thing I would say is do your homework. I think you're making a good choice in terms of where you're putting your investment dollars. I think you're opening yourself up to the ability to scale, and you're also just putting your money to work instead of yourself to work.
Right.
So if you want to put yourself to work, if that's your goal, then do it yourself. But if your goal is to put money to work for you, then go after a property manager and just find somebody that you trust, that you click with, and ideally find somebody that can help you with the big picture versus just property management.
Yeah, and as we mentioned earlier on in the show, managing property is a full-time job, and if you're doing it yourself, you need to understand that there's a lot of moving components to it. My advice is, if you're just starting out, even and you only have one door right now, hire a company like yourself that's going to help you understand how to deal with it and manage through it, because it's going to be a learning curve. It's gaining experience in how to properly manage your own properties. Just doesn't happen overnight, and I think you need to be educated on it. I think you need to really pay attention to what is happening, within the property and your surroundings. It's a big financial investment that you're making, and there could be some strain that comes along with it.
Yep.
So my advice definitely would be to make sure that you're just listening and working with the right people that are going to help you get through the process of investing into real estate, no matter what that may be. Do you feel, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you think maybe our audience should know about when it comes to property management?
Well, I would say it's an amazing industry. I think that the need for professional property management is going to continue to get stronger in the GTA.
I think so.
When I look at kind of some of the macro things that are going on in terms of investors are really stressed because interest rates are going up. Property taxes are going up big time in Toronto, right? So they're in a stressful spot. Residents are also in a stressful spot. It's more expensive to feed the family these days, right? With inflation, rents are at an all-time high. There's high stress on both sides of the equation is what I'm seeing. And when there's a lot of stress like that, there's going to be more disagreement. And so the ability to be able to mediate that for investors, I think is going to be a really important value that property managers can bring. So I think there's going to be a lot of growth in the need for this kind of a service. I also think for people that are considering it as a vocation, it's very multifaceted, very exciting. You get to do everything from kind of project management to people leadership to sales when you're showing properties. It touches a lot of aspects of skills, and so I think it's a really, really cool career path. And I would say for those who are interested, back to one of the first things I said when we started talking, this is a people business. Communication is key. So as you're maybe getting ready to become a property manager, don't just think about the how-tos and the rules, but also think about how do you work with people, work on your emotional intelligence, not just your, IQ, but also your EQ, because I think that's going to really differentiate you.
That's really good. Armando, I just want to say thank you for joining us today.
It's great to be here.
This episode on Revealing Real Estate is going to be really good, and it's something that our audience is going to be really interested in. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how can they best reach you?
Yeah, well, we've got a website. Maybe that's the best place I can point you. From there, you can schedule time with us. You'll find my phone number. So it's wealthbuilders.realpm.ca. And if you'd be so kind to add that link in the description, it'll be easy. So just go to our website and you'll see our office is just across from Yorkdale on Dufferin. So
you're close to Vince then?
Actually, in the same office.
In the same office. Yeah. I do a lot of work with Vince. Good guy.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Revealing Real Estate. Please subscribe to the podcast and rate us 5 stars on whatever platform you listen to us on. It really helps us reach much more people. Until next time, I'm Nick Oppedisano, and thank you for listening to Revealing Real Estate.
Looking to buy or sell? Call a team you can trust. Don't believe me? Our Google reviews say it all. Put us on your lawn, your house will be gone. TheOPteam.com.